Is it okay in the short term to have a recession?
Look, yeah, everything's okay. Some people on Wall Street say that we're going to have the greatest economy in history.
Is it okay in the short term to have a recession?
Look, yeah, everything's okay.
That's the president saying everything's okay, including a short-term recession. Do you agree?
Well, I'm old enough to remember when Ronald Reagan took office and inflation was completely out of control. He and Paul Volcker had to take some pretty bold and swift actions to tame inflation. That included a pretty severe recession, but that's what it took. When you come into office and you are inheriting enormous messes across the spectrum, you know, an open border that presents a clear and present danger, a 40-year high inflation that has dramatically devalued the dollar, endless wars going on. It's hard to clean up those enormous messes. So I appreciate President Trump has acted boldly, swiftly, decisively to clean up some of these messes. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. And sometimes the results are going to have to be reevaluated and relooked at, some actions reversed, but you have to act boldly when you have that responsibility.
I hear you.
And when we first did one of these seminars, Tom Homan, the then acting director of ICE, said that he was going to threaten to refer me to DOJ because I'm using my free speech rights in order to advise people of their constitutionally guaranteed protections. And he may want to do it again today. And to that I say, come for me. You're going to have to come for me.
"30 seconds. Just give me 30 seconds. One question. If you had the opportunity right now, would you fire Hexef? Would you get rid of Elon Musk? Yes or no?"
Elon, I love the double hat, by the way. He's the only one that can do that.
Question. What do you want your legacy to be one day when you're long gone?
That I was useful in the furtherance of civilization. That I helped move civilization forward. Added to the store of knowledge and capability. That I helped understand the universe.
I think you're on your way. You're doing a lot.
Even for a Marco Rubio, I think it's too much.
But you think well of him. You think that he's an able guy.
Listen, I've worked very well with him for years. I've been disappointed by some of the actions he's taken as secretary and this kind of kowtowing to Trump. Matter of fact, it appeared that cabinet meeting earlier this week where everyone went around and basically paid kudos to the great leader. It was something that, frankly, I would have expected out of North Korea, maybe not out of a cabinet meeting in America. But the vast majority of the other members of the committee, you know, I know they're good folks. They just have to be willing. I had one member say, you know, Mark, you sound like our conscience. I don't want to be your conscience. I want you to vote your conscience. Just don't talk to me privately. I do think we're getting close to them stepping up, but the problem is going to be how much structural damage is going to be done before my Republican friends find their voice and voice publicly what they're already saying privately.
So Israel had to shut down its main...
Off in volume, and when we, as consumers, see the shortages.
Right, so CEOs are telling me, hit the pause button, right? I'm not going to import anymore at these kind of prices. Let's wait and see. I don't know if it's going to be 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks till I get some clarity. Then hiring. Off the table for right now. Capital investment, pause. And the retailers are telling me that realistically, with even the 10%, I'm going to have to pass it on to the consumers.
So how much is this really coming from all over? It's not just about China. This is about really global trade coming to a standstill until there is a much greater degree of certainty and a much lower tariff rate than even the baseline that's been put out there.
Yeah, when I was last with you all, Lisa, I said global trade's going to slow, economies will follow, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Back in November, so many of us were wringing our hands about 4% inflation. We've just added 10 percentage points to imports coming out of Southeast Asia for our port, and these unbelievable numbers out of China.
How much are you going to see a real decline in dock workers if this goes on?
Yeah, this is the question. So the trucker hauling 4 or 5 containers today, next week, she probably hauls 2 or 3. The dock workers are no longer going to see overtime and double shifts. They're going to probably work less than a traditional work week, starting right off the bat. Every 4 containers mean a job. So when we start dialing this back, it's less job opportunities.
And what happens if we get a deal?
If we get a deal, it's going to take about a month. Let me walk you through that real quick. About 2 weeks to get the ships repositioned around these major ports, from Qingdao to Shanghai to Xiamen, load up all those containers, and then another 2 weeks to steam across the Pacific to get to us. This is important because now we're talking about spring and summer fashion. So we're kind of at a crux here that we've got to have something pretty quick.
And back to school, which is going to be, I think, very critical when it comes to political pushback for this administration. We have a story out, it was anecdotal reporting as well. We've heard about China quietly starting to exempt about a quarter of U.S. imports. Are any U.S. importers exempting Chinese tariffs? Is there a way to get around the 145%?
Not really. There may be some exceptions, Anne-Marie, maybe a little bit going north or south of us, but realistically speaking, nobody is out there talking a lot about, hey, I got a better deal coming out of China right now.
The Flexport CEO joined us earlier in the week, and he said ocean freight is down 60% from China. When do we see 100%?
Good question.
A day, $5 billion a day. You don't talk about that. And right now, we're going to be at a point very soon where we're making money every day. Look, how soon? We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars with China. Now we're essentially not doing business with China. Therefore, we're saving hundreds of billions of dollars. Very simple.
You think people should have the right to criticize you without fear of reprisal?
Absolutely, yeah, I do. That I do.
And how do you square that?
And I think that happens.
How do you square that with the fact that you have passed these executive orders asking the Attorney General to look into some of the people who've criticized you, who've been harshest against you?
I have been investigated more than any person in the history of the United States of America. I've been investigated more than the late, great, as I say at my rallies, Alphonse Capone. Alphonse Capone was a nasty man. He was the highest level gangster. And I have been investigated more than Al Capone, more than anybody. These people are evil people, and I won.
The Trump economy.
It partially is right now, and I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy, and the bad parts are the Biden economy, because he's done a terrible job. He did a terrible job on everything.
Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to start with something close to home for you. At least 9 schools in Milwaukee have been temporarily closed this year after some students were found to have elevated blood lead levels, which can cause developmental issues. The CDC has denied city officials' request for help after HHS Secretary Kennedy shut down the agency's lead poisoning prevention program. Your fellow Wisconsin Senator, Democrat Tammy Baldwin, wrote to Secretary Kennedy saying he needs to immediately rectify the issue, unquote. Do you agree? Have you talked to Secretary Kennedy about this?
Good morning, Jake. Well, first of all, lead in paint and buildings has been an issue for decades. We know how to test for it. We know how to mitigate it. I wouldn't think this is something that requires federal government involvement in it. It sounds like Secretary Kennedy, again, when you have a budget now that's $7 trillion large, having only been $4.4 trillion large in 2019, and you try and pare back government, there's some things that you're going to have to reverse. And it sounds like Secretary Kennedy is going to take a look at this and see if he needs some experts on this in CDC. But again, this is an issue that's been around a long time, and local and state officials ought to be able to handle this.
Let's turn to...
Do you have a thought of your own? Do you have a belief of your own? Or is everything literally just whatever Donald Trump tells you it should be?
Welcome to day 101 of President Trump's second term. A day that I think will be remembered not for policy breakthroughs, but for what can only be described as an unprecedented display of sycophancy that made even North Korea's leadership blush.
He's actually doing the things that he promised that he would do. And Mr. President, it's been an honor to be part of it for the past 100 days.
Mr. President, the last 4 years, the world experienced a total lack of zero leadership under Biden. And then we've had 100 days of your leadership with respect, with strength.
It was not brown nosing, but orange nosing personified. The cabinet meeting resembled less a strategic discussion and more a reality show reunion.
President, your first 100 days has far exceeded that of any other presidency in this country.
Where the main agenda was who could outdo the other in praising the president? Literally on all fours.
Ever. Never seen anything like it. Thank you.
Anyway, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, claimed that Trump's efforts had saved 258 million lives through fentanyl crackdown. 258 million? That's all. That's nearly the entire US population, by the way. Talk about rounding it up and crunching numbers. Pete Hegseth, our defense secretary, still got a job, praised Trump's leadership in making the military great again, conveniently sidestepping recent controversies involving leaking military plans. But hey, he's got his makeup room on the go, and who's paying for that? The American taxpayer. Could be
President Trump, in your first term when I had a chance to work with you as governor, you were courageous. The thing that's empowering this amazing group of people around this table, and you've probably assembled the greatest cabinet ever, is that this time you're not just courageous, you're actually...
the meeting's Peace to Resistance, cabinet members donning red and navy Gulf of America caps. Because nothing says like, let's have a serious meeting and sell some stuff on eBay at the same time. Celebrating Trump's rebranding of the Gulf of Mexico, effective governance. Yeah, that's what happens, renaming a body of water. Even conservative commentator Ann Coulter couldn't stomach the spectacle, liken it to North Korean style tributes. It was pretty over the top. When Ann Coulter thinks she's gone too far, I suppose it's time to reassess. In summary, day 101, the cabinet meeting was less about governance and more about glorification. Caroline Levitt spinning it away. If this trend continues, we might soon see a new national holiday. Trump Appreciation Day. Yeah, shouldn't say that. Complete with mandatory praise session and Gulf of America parades.
Every change in America has come from a movement. It has come from not from Washington, D.C., or even a state capital. Every change in this country has come from a movement that has bubbled up. And you've got to make your voices heard.
We are building public sentiment against which nothing can survive. So remember, you have the power. Let's go out and share it with this country and win America back. Let's do this.
Donald Trump didn't give a commencement address. Those exercises didn't start till the next day. He invited himself to Tuscaloosa and had to create an event in which they couldn't hardly get people to come to. They had to open it up to the general public at one point. So this, I think, just even that was the backlash. The fact that the president had felt compelled to invite himself, was not invited by the university. This was just kind of a small piece of what we're seeing across America. And I think people are getting their footings, and they're starting to see what's happening with due process. They're starting to see what's happening with the cuts and how many times Trump is losing in court. And that empowers people to get out to the streets and to start this movement and to keep it going.
Those students at the University of Alabama did not wait for the DNC or elected Democrats or really anyone else to tell them what to do. They took matters and our future into their own hands. They organized that protest. They invited Doug Jones and myself. They brought 1,500 people out. And as you mentioned, we're seeing that all across the country. We're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in Waco, Texas, where I was last week, and in Denton, in Tulsa. And out of that, I think you're going to see leaders emerge, maybe some from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who will be running in 2026, and they will give those national elected leaders the message. And I believe the message is, we fight for you. But the challenge with that message is you can't just say it, you got to show it.
NBC News poll shows that the Democratic Party's unfavorable rating is at 60%. The unfavorable rating for the Republican Party is 55%. But in a Washington Post poll that was out last week, folks were asked the question, who do you feel is out of touch? President Trump, the Republican Party, or the Democratic Party? And 69% said that the Democratic Party was out of touch. How does the party get that part of the public sentiment turned around?
You know, I think that one of the challenges Democrats have these days, Jonathan, is to make sure that we not only resist Trump, that we not only oppose this regime that we're seeing, but that we offer a better vision for America. I think Democrats have failed to some extent on that in trying to reach people exactly where they are. Understand that in today's world, all politics is not local. All politics is personal. And that means personal for them and their communities.